So yes, you saw the thumbnail. So in this video, indeed, I want to focus on Jacob Zuma, but particularly this statement that says things were better under Zuma. It's quite famous and popular, right, in our political discourse. So I want to touch on it a bit, and I must say I'm feeling slightly uncomfortable discussing anything about Jacob Zuma because it feels very, very, very tricky. It feels like I'm in tricky territory because people that support Jacob Zuma, I've seen the interaction. It's quite an aggressive bunch, right? When people love Zuma. It is a serious thing. But I'm not about to tell you who to love, who not to love. All I'm asking is that you hear me out. So there's a famous metaphor, right, that says that if you put a frog in boiling water, it will jump out immediately. But if you place it in cold water and slowly turn up the heat, it won't notice the danger until it's too late. So this metaphor is basically speaking about what we call sort of like a gradual decline, right? So it does not happen immediately, it happens over time.
With its mountains and green valleys, Vinales has always been a popular tourist destination. Visitor numbers have dropped over the last 2 years. Tour operators are cancelling trips to Cuba, preferring the more economically stable islands. Orlando owns the Moyote, a small guest house with 3 rooms.
La situación económica de Cuba ahora casi la vivo como otra COVID, una COVID económica. Se hace muy difícil mantener un negocio. La primera palabra, desde que estamos en esta situación, que pregunta a una agencia de viaje para reservar, es: ¿tienes planta? ¿Tienes generador eléctrico? De hecho, me dicen: ¿pero tienes gasolina? Si no tienes, yo la llevo. Y aquí han venido los clientes con el bidón de gasolina para que yo les ponga el split, les ponga electricidad para la ducha. Jean-Marc, del 22-24 tenía una sola porque venía el que canceló. Ahora quería las 3 del 22-24. Yo le dije que no, porque tenía una sola. Me dijo: guárdemela. Se hace terrible es con la comunicación. Nosotros estamos en una zona donde inmediatamente, cuando se va la electricidad, nos quedamos sin comunicación. No existe la posibilidad. Ahora mismo yo tengo una urgencia para confirmar unas habitaciones a unos ciudadanos franceses y no puedo. Tengo que esperar a que llegue la electricidad. Sobre todo el Airbnb, que tardas mucho en contestar y pierdes la reserva. Y con las directas también. Eso es terrible. Te quedas sin trabajo.
Before the crisis, Cuba received nearly 5 million visitors each year.
So, in this case, as recent as 2 years ago, the country of Cuba was receiving 50% more tourists, right? And all of a sudden, this country is in crisis. People are not visiting Cuba precisely because of what this resort or this accommodation owner is speaking about, that there is issues in fuel, communication, power outages, and so forth. So in a span of 2 years, life is just completely different.
No jobs and soaring inflation. It's a recipe for wholesale desperation. Aid agencies reckon half of all Zimbabweans now rely on assistance for survival.
Do you trust President Mnangagwa to make things better?
No.
So why do you say he's making things worse every day?
I don't know if it's him or it's what, because things are getting worse and worse every day. Prices are going for transport, schools, clinics are closed, everything is down. We are struggling.
And do you have children?
Yeah, and they are not going to school. I can't afford to pay school fees for them.
They're not even going to school?
Yeah, they are home.
When Mnangagwa replaced Mugabe, people hoped that maybe things would get better.
They were better before.
Really?
Yeah.
You seriously think things were better under President Mugabe?
Yeah. Yes. Better before. It's becoming
Mugabe is better
every day.
than Mnangagwa.
Another example, right? And this clip here from Zimbabwe was released in 2019, but I think it is quite relevant, right, in order to drive my point. Let's look at Zimbabwe, right, based on what the people of Zimbabwe are saying, that, well, it was way better under Mugabe than it is now. The same Mugabe, right, just to look at a brief history here, Mugabe ruled Zimbabwe from 1980 all the way until 2017. He was the president. So When he was the president, the land expropriation, which is known as the fast-track land reform, occurred in the year 2000. He was directly involved in making that happen, right? Because of this fast-track land reform program in the year 2000, Zimbabwe's agricultural output dropped more than 60% between 2000 and 2009, primarily due to the fast-track land reform program. And basically what this land reform program did is that it redistributed farms from commercial white farmers to new and often inexperienced owners, leading to a sharp decline in productivity and exports. This is according to a report, right? It further says here that the collapse of agriculture had a devastating ripple effect on other sectors, particularly manufacturing. Again, this is happening between the year 2000 and 2009. Robert Mugabe is in power at that time, right? Then there is obviously the hyperinflation, which has really, hit the economy of Zimbabwe quite massively. And here, what happened is that government began to print money, right, to fund budget deficits. Inflation hit record levels, estimated at 7.96 billion% in mid-year 2008. As a result, the Zimbabwean dollar became worthless, leading to dollarization in the year 2009. What are we seeing here? We're seeing a clear picture. People of Zimbabwe in the year 2019, now this is much further down, are feeling the effects of what happened in the year 2000, the year 2008, the year 2009. They're feeling the effect of what happened when Zimbabwe went into hyperinflation state. They are feeling the effects that came from the decisions of Robert Mugabe. But as a result, instead of them saying, well, I think the reason why we're in this position is because we haven't actually had reform. We actually haven't actually changed our systems, right? It is still pretty much the same legacy, right? Maybe that's why our lives haven't changed. Instead, what people tend to say is that things were better under Mugabe. Things would be better, of course, because at the time, it was only passed, it was only still introduced, but over time, it just got worse. Again, in the case of Cuba, right? Cuba has been ruled by the same political system, which is the Communist Party of Cuba. This is now since 1959. So we are in 2025 because that particular documentary was shot in 2025. Since 1959, they have not had any change in the political system, right? So even when Fidel Castro, his brother took over, and nothing has really changed fundamentally in the political system. The Communist Party still controls, till this very day, all branches of government. There is still no free, multi-party elections. State still owns and controls most of the economy. So what I'm basically saying is that taking the statement that we tend to hear a lot in our political discourse, that things were better under Zuma, right? Along with the metaphor of the frog. Taking these two things, what I'm basically saying is that we need to be more focused on the systems, on the design, on the ideology, on the policies, and not people or the individuals, right? Because what's happened with the case of Cuba, as well as Zimbabwe, is that these policies that were approved at that time or the decisions rather, that the leaders put at that time, have outlived them. So what we're seeing is that maybe these decisions once upon a time were very popular, right? It made sense. In the case of the Zimbabwe land reform thing, right? At some point, once upon a time, Mugabe was seen as revolutionary. He was seen as someone who was leading a really important cause, reversing colonialism, reversing colonial rule, right? Reclaiming the land, right? And I'm sure a lot of people still admire him for that. We've seen with Ramaphosa making a whole lot of utterances. But once upon a time, this was popular, right? The idea of taking the land and giving it to inexperienced cadres, elites, right, who are tied to ZANU-PF and all of the political elites seemed like the right thing to do. It seemed like justice, like transformation, right? Things felt better under Zuma. We hear this a lot. But what has happened is that at that time, the decay just had not fully set in. That is the real truth. Things felt better because the decay had not fully set in. We need to be honest about these things. But once it begins, my argument is that once the decay starts, We cannot expect that the same people who are responsible for the decay are the ones that are going to fix it. And this is where it becomes really tricky. Because the real problem is leaders like the ones, Jacob Zuma, ANC leaders, ZANU-PF leaders, leaders that are leading in Cuba. The problem with them, what is common amongst them, is the fact that they are 100% committed to the idea, to this ideal view, to socialism, to communism, which is 100% idealistic. They are 100% committed to that, right? Which means that instead of focusing on what the outcome is, let's say, we actually don't think that this is working. We don't think that trying to reclaim back the land and all of that would necessarily be the right outcome. What they tend to do many a times, they don't change, they double down. Instead of saying, okay, cool, we need to shapeshift, they double down. Because these beliefs, because these ideologies, because of these statements, because of these commitments that they make, because that is what defines them. That is what they truly believe society needs. Going to, for example, a Solly Mapaile, who is the leader of the SACP, and telling Solly Mapaile that Solly Mapaile, you're going to have real problems if you chase out business owners, if you destroy capital. If that happens, you are going to have real problems. Solly Mapaile won't believe it when you tell him. Solly Mapaile will not even change when he finally sees what happens. Instead, he will say, no. The problem is not that. It'll just be something else. In fact, I'm going to link an interview that I recently sat through. A minister from the current government in Cuba sat down to speak to Mehdi. He is the famous journalist from the United States. I think he's got his own independent platform here on YouTube. Sat down to speak to Mehdi. I need you to listen to that interview and just look at the fact that over years, since this 1959 rule, since the time of Fidel Castro, this minister in 2025 still takes no accountability for what they have put in place, takes no accountability for their ideology. Instead, he says anyone who is opposed to Cuba is only opposed to Cuba because they're opposed to socialism. So you can already tell that this is not someone who's willing to say, maybe people that criticize Cuba are right to do that, and maybe they criticize Cuba because socialism is problematic. So for him, it's an immediate defense. If you criticize Cuba, no, you must just be anti-socialism. Maybe I'm not just about anti-socialism, maybe I'm anti-seeing people suffer, which is what's happening in Cuba. Cool, I'm going to leave it at that for this video. Thank you guys for checking out this video and spending some time with me. Please, in the comment section, let me know where you stand. I know very well, and I am fully aware of the loyalty that Jacob Zuma enjoys till this very day. And I'm not necessarily speaking to that at all. I'm just saying that, do you guys see the fact that if systems don't change, no matter who comes in? In fact, I think what has happened is that because the system has stayed the same, the person who comes in much later is the one that will often take the blame. But then if we go back just 10, 15 years back, we realize that, okay, wow, these things haven't really changed. It's just that the impact is the one that we're feeling now. Let us not become the frog, because we have information, we have access to the internet, we have these videos. There are tons and tons of documentaries that give us a good window into what is actually happening, right? Let us not fall for the idea, let us not fall for the ideal of what society should be like. Let us look at the policies, interrogate them, so that eventually, over time, they can benefit us and benefit our children, right? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And please, as a reminder, I'll never stop reminding you guys to like and also to subscribe to this YouTube channel. We are very close to 10,000 subscribers, so please do the right thing. Support, and I will see you guys again soon.